Look at her sitting there. This is the one I've been telling you about, ever since the volunteer program started. And the best part, she doesn't understand Igbo. She's listening to the music of my voice. This is the famous Silicon Valley girl. Look at her, staring at that screen like the secrets of the universe are hidden in there. She thinks she's a goddess among mortals.
Zola thought she had found a fool with a fat wallet. But the woman sitting in that leather chair heard every vibration, recorded every insult, and remained as still as a deep lake until the storm chose its moment. This is the story of Amara, and I need you to settle in. Let me take you back to where the threads first crossed. In Kenya, when you graduate from the university, life doesn't just hand you a career. Sometimes you join the National Volunteer Scheme. They take the brightest minds and the most shielded children and toss them into the heart of the country, places where the air tastes different and the language sounds like a riddle. You are posted away from your comfort zone to a place where your name is a foreign sound. For the first month, you are headed into a training camp. You wear the same drab uniform, eat the same maize and beans, and march under a sun that doesn't care who your father is. Camp is a pressure cooker. It's where strangers become soulmates and where others learn exactly who to avoid. That was where Amara met Zola. Amara had been posted to a highland town, a place draped in mist and green tea plantations, a Kikuyu stronghold. She was a quiet girl, a watcher. She lived in the silence between breaths. While others were partying, Amara was in a corner with her laptop. She worked for a global tech firm, managing data and design for people in time zones 6 hours behind her. She had her own wealth, her own rhythm, and she had learned early that the loudest person in the room is rarely the most powerful. She didn't flaunt it, but in a camp full of struggling graduates, her quality was unmistakable. Her sneakers were never stained, her devices were always charged. She moved with the ease of someone who wasn't afraid of tomorrow. Zola noticed her on day 3. Zola wasn't a stranger to these hills. She was a daughter of the soil. She was a hairstylist, a woman with hands like lightning and an ambition that could swallow the sun. She had a small, thriving studio in the town square. She had pulled every string to be posted back home so she could run her business while serving the nation. To Zola, the volunteer year was just a marketing opportunity. A camp full of young women was a gold mine of future clients. When Zola saw Amara, the girl with the quiet eyes and the expensive tech, she did what she did best. She wove a web. "You're always walking," Zola had said, sliding into the seat next to her. "I admire that. I'm a hustler too. I built my own studio from nothing. No shortcuts, just these hands." That was the key that turned the lock. Amara respected one thing above all else: self-reliance. A woman who built a business in a man's world was a woman worth knowing. "That's impressive," Amara had replied. "We self-made women have to protect each other," Zola said, already braiding the friendship into a tight, deceptive knot. And Amara let her in. They became friends in that intense, shallow way camp allows. Amara saw an ambitious entrepreneur. She didn't see the envy rotting underneath because Zola was a master of the mask. When the camp ended, Amara decided to stay in the town. She liked the cold air and the privacy. She rented a small, modern house on the edge of the tea fields and continued her digital life. Zola was ecstatic. A high-value target was now a permanent resident. "You must come to the studio," Zola would insist every week. "Amara, you are my sister. Let me handle your hair. Don't mow to those butchers in the city." Eventually, more out of a sense of loyalty than need, Amara agreed. She walked into the studio one Tuesday afternoon, not knowing she was walking into an ambush of truth. Zola's studio was chic, all glass, white light, and the scent of expensive oils. When Amara arrived, Zola was there with her cousin, Sheila. "Amara, my queen," Zola cheered, ushering her into the chair. "Sheila, this is the one I told you about, the genius." Sheila gave Amara a slow, calculating look, the kind of look a hawk gives a rabbit. "So, this is her," Sheila said. "I've heard so much." Amara settled in, opened her laptop on her lap, and let her guard down. Zola began the walk, sectioning Amara's hair with practiced precision. For 30 minutes, the conversation was light. Weather, local politics, the price of tea. Then, Sheila leaned in and switched languages. She spoke in Igbo, a sharp, rhythmic dialect. Is this the one? Sheila asked in the native tongue. The cash cow from the camp. The very one, Zola replied, in the same language, her fingers never stopping. Amara's fingers didn't pause on the keyboard. Her expression didn't flicker, but inside, a cold, hard diamond of clarity formed. Here is what Zola had never bothered to ask. Amara's mother was from the heart of Nyeri. Amara grew up in a household where Igbo was the language of secrets, of prayers, and of discipline. She spoke it with the fluency of a poet. Although her father's name and her city accent hid it perfectly, she chose to stay silent. She chose to listen. So, tell me, Sheila whispered, is this as rich as she looks? Zola scoffed, rich and delusional. In camp, she wouldn't touch the food we all ate. She was ordering delivery from the city every day like a princess. She's too good to get her hands dirty. She pays people to clean her house. She thinks her time is more valuable than ours. It's pure, disgusting pride. The two of them laughed, a low, guttural sound that vibrated against Amara's skull. And what does she actually do? Sheila asked. She sits, Zola said with a sneer. She stares at a glowing box and presses buttons. She calls it remote work. She doesn't know what it is like to stand on her feet for 12 hours. She doesn't know the smell of chemicals or the ache in her back. She makes money while she sleeps. And that's why she doesn't respect it. If you don't suffer for a shilling, you don't value it. True, Sheila nodded. So what's the plan? Zola's eyes gleamed in the mirror. Today, the price is triple for the special treatment. She won't even blink. She'll just pay it and thank me. I'm going to use her to buy that new generator I wanted. Why not? If God sends you a fool, you don't send her back. True, Sheila laughed. You are a genius, Zola. Bleed her dry. These city girls think we are beneath them. Let her pay for the privilege of looking down on us. For 3 hours, Amara sat through the insults. She heard them tear apart her character, her family, and her physical appearance. She listened as they planned to defraud her. She didn't flinch. She didn't cry. She simply waited for the work to be finished. As the sun began to set, Zola finished the installation. It was a masterpiece of lace and silk. There, Zola said, beaming. You look like a goddess, Amara. Truly my best work. Amara looked at herself in the mirror. Then she pulled out her phone. She didn't open her banking app. Instead, she hit a contact and put the phone to her ear. When she spoke, it wasn't English. It was Igbo. Pure, high-register, effortless Igbo. Mother, Amara said, her voice echoing in the sudden, violent silence of the room. Yes, I'm just finishing at the salon. No, don't worry about dinner. I've had a very enlightening afternoon. I've been listening to some very interesting stories today, Mother. You wouldn't believe what people say when they think you are not listening. The atmosphere in the studio didn't just change. It died. Zola's comb hit the floor with a plastic clatter. Sheila's face went from a smirk to the color of ash. Amara lowered her phone and turned the chair slowly to face Zola. She didn't shout. She spoke in a voice as cold as a mountain stream. My mother was born 3 miles from here. I've known this language since I was in the womb. I heard every word, every single one. Zola's mouth opened, but only a dry wheeze came out. You said I don't work hard. I solve problems that keep thousands of people employed across the globe. I use my mind so that I don't have to break my back. That isn't laziness, that's leverage. You think because I don't sweat, I don't labor? The most exhausting work in this world is the work you can't see. She turned her gaze to Sheila. And you don't even know my last name, yet you've spent 3 hours helping a stranger sharpening a knife for my back. You aren't a friend, Sheila. You are a parasite looking for a host. Amara looked back at Zola. You said you'd keep me close as long as my bank account was open. You said you didn't like me. Well, Zola, here is the reality. The account is closed, and this friendship, it never existed. Zola started to tremble. Amara, please, it was just a joke. We were just passing time. I don't want this hair. I don't want your envy, your malice, or your dirty energy attached to my head. I don't want to carry your whispers home with me. So, you are going to take it out now. But it took 3 hours. Take it out. For the next hour, the studio was a tomb. Zola, with shaking hands and eyes blurred with tears of shame, had to systematically undo her own hard work. She had to unpick every stitch, dissolve every bond, and watch her masterpiece fall to the floor in clumps of wasted effort. Sheila stood in the corner, unable to look up. When Amara's natural hair was finally free, she stood up. She looked at the invoice on the counter. She took out her card and tapped the machine. She paid the standard price for a removal, not a shilling more, no tip, no bonus for the generator fund. Thank you for the clarity. It was worth every cent. She walked out of that studio and never looked back. Amara went home, took a long shower, and returned to her world of data and light. She didn't post about it. She didn't seek revenge. She simply deleted Zola's number and moved on. Because when you have real peace, you don't need to win a fight. You just need to leave the arena. But the story didn't end for Zola. Because Sheila, being the snake she was, couldn't keep the secret. Within a week, the story of Zola the gossip had spread through the town like wildfire. But in Sheila's version, Zola was the villain who almost ruined the town's reputation with a high-profile visitor. Women who used to frequent Zola's studio began to wonder, what does she say about me when I turn my back? Does she laugh at my thinning hair? Does she plan to overcharge me too?
One by one, the chairs went empty. The self-made empire began to crumble, not because of a competitor, but because of the poison that came out of the owner's own mouth. Amara's hair grew back, thicker and stronger than before. Zola's business did not. The lesson is simple, my friends. Never mistake silence for ignorance. The person you are underestimating might be the one writing the final chapter of your story. And never, ever insult the forest while you are still standing among the trees. You never know which one is listening. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button. Tell me in the comments, what would you have done? Would you have let her finish the hair? Or would you have made her tear it down? I'll see you in the next story.